Hello, welcome everyone to this webinar. Think Distinct. I have prepared a couple of slides to work with you through some things that I think matter. I think one element that we are going to discuss together as interactive as possible is how do we become distinct? And then what is it that design means? And we'll connect this with digital. And that's, in a nutshell, what I want to do with you today. I've prepared a couple of polls, and as I said, I'd launch very quickly the first one that is trying to set the scene and give us an understanding of who's in the room. Nothing is more important than standing out in a marketplace, especially when everything is very, very comparable. And the key message of today is that digital design strategies help you to get to that success. Let me launch the first poll then. It has several questions. And if you were to go through them, then we quickly get a sense of who is here today, who is with us, who is thinking together with you and me about distinctiveness through digital design. So I'm going to close the poll now. Thanks for everyone who has voted so far. So last minute spurt. And now I end the polling and I immediately share the results with you so that you see who is with you on today's webinar. So here we go. B2B products are the majority. That services, B2B services are also very strong. Services in general are very strong. We see that your company is not younger, is older than the average. Your margin is higher, which is a good sign. And do you experience margin pressure? Okay, so we almost have 90% on this. This is a very, very strong indication of that you hope to get something from me, and I am confident that I can give you something. So what is distinctive? What is distinctive? I have to start with the definition, shouldn't I? It's pretty easy, I think, when you look at the reality in many retail outlets. If you have been allowed to go and visit a retail store amidst the COVID crisis. It very often looks like this, and the only strategy that's left is pricing strategy. You have to sell cheaper than the other one that looks exactly the same as you look. Whether you're selling washing machines or headsets, it is a very, very difficult situation out there. How do you stand out then? And I love the artist Liu Bolin, who kind of tries to stand out while blending in. You can see the figure in the center of the picture. That's what we are trying to achieve here. We want to blend in so that people understand who we are, what we offer them, instant soup, but we also want to somehow stand out. And we want to stand out because commoditization is eating our margin. And we need distinctiveness to overcome commoditization. So blending in and standing out at the same time. Why is this blending in? Why not just standing out? Well, there can be too much of a good thing. In general, we design value for money. So that means we add value and we try to offer a good price as possible. So that's the area where you don't add value and you are expensive. So let's not discuss this. This is an interesting one, and this is an interesting area as well. And if you look at the airline space, we could say that before COVID, airlines like Ryanair could occupy the space in this graphic. And then you see that some private little jet companies offer a lot of value, personalization, but at another price tag. And then this wonderful position, the green ball in the right top corner, is then obviously highly attractive. But I suggest that we should discuss how we can design value in this area that I enclosed in green. And for this, we need distinctiveness. Differentiation, offering variety, is not enough, because people will only want a variety of something that they find truly appealing, that is really distinctive. Then they ask for a differentiation. So how do we do this then? Well, in the airline space, I think we need to wait a little bit for this really to materialize. We also want, in this green space, not to overdo it. Malvolio, a figure from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, clearly overdoes it with his trendiness. And we don't want to overdo it as a brand either. We don't want to overdo it as a brand, even if we need to stand out in the cutthroat world of high-end fashion. This is, again, Lou Bolin standing out and blending in for a fashion brand that wants to stand out and blend in. And I think you all know this brand, and they are very good at standing out. But they're also very good at blending in, because this is not what you necessarily buy when you go on the ski slopes wearing something from Moncler. So standing out and blending in is well balanced in this context. So you may have something outrageous, but you also need to be able to blend in so that people understand what you're actually offering. Design. I showed you a couple of pictures, and many of you already intuitively saw what is design here. Let me give you a very simple, really simple, basic definition of design and how it contributes to distinctiveness. First, there's function. Something that functions well, is well thought through, is said to be well designed. Emotion. Something that has a positive emotional appeal is said to be well designed. We enjoy the object, we enjoy the service, we just fall in love with the object. And then we have symbol. When the object has a symbolic value. So when you're driving in a sports car through the city and the heads are turning to see who has just driven in this wonderful car, that's what we are talking about. So you're enjoying the reaction of others. And that is many faceted. So three key contributions of design to distinctiveness. And they are extremely important in a world where online prices, as you said in the chat, are immediately comparable. Everyone can see price differences, and the contribution that design makes to distinctiveness is make them forget the price or make them not care so much about the price. So what is your experience with design? That's the second poll that I'd like to launch. I show you the results as earlier immediately so that we can carry on our conversation. And you see, many of you have experience with design. So some of this is not new for you. Is this experience with design positive? Given that many of you have more than 10 years of experience with design, it's striking that 60%, close to 60% have a positive, and others have a mixed experience. Okay, let me just go back and move on so that we can carry on our conversation here. I want you to pay attention to design's 3 Ps. Yes, so yeah, we can't keep up with marketing. They have more, but let's do the 3 Ps for design. One is there has been an awful lot of attention to the product, and the development of design was always that producers made products, and then they presented it to users, and then the users whether it's companies or individuals, had to decide whether they felt the appeal, yes or no, whether the product was distinctive or not. So Ford's Model T, we know the story, was kind of beaten back by Raymond Loewy's intelligent design that made cars much more interesting, emotionally appealing. One of the most famous designers made it on the cover of Time magazine and so on. So very, very important figure in automotive history, even got a stamp, and you see what he stands for. He doesn't stand for a design that is the most functional. He goes and makes something that is most appealing. I'll come to UX design in a minute. So stay in the car space. Again, we have car companies that choose strategy to clearly stand out for a specific group. Lou Bolin is standing in front of Ferrari, and Ferrari clearly stands out in the context of the car manufacturers. In motorcycles, we all know that cycles with motors can be very different. We know that you can be a cruiser, or you can be a more sportive motorcycle rider, or you can get on a monster. So Ducati's turnaround is mainly attributed to design feats like this naked design of a now world famous motorcycle that has stunned the world when it came out. So that was a lot of attention to the products. In the last decades, we have seen much more attention to the process, and this is where user interface and experience comes in. When I started in market research when I started market research early on in my career, I was trying to figure out what customers want, looking behind a mirror at them, how they reacted to samples and to proposed solutions that we offered. And then this was all analyzed, and this is how we try to figure out what the user wants. So we wanted to move from making for the user to something that is more co-creating a product with the user, with some user input. And over the years, IDEO's design process of that is by now known as design thinking, and many firms have developed branches of this, has dominated the discussion of design. How do you become distinctive? You need to go through a design thinking process, and this is all extremely valuable. And it leads us to better designs for the users. It leads us to better designs for the users because it solves problems that users may have. Now, digital design opens up a whole box of new and fascinating opportunities. And now I'd like to know from you what your experience with the digital design is. And again, a very, very short poll, very few questions. Thank you for all of you who have responded. That's great. So let me show you the results. And many of you have experience with digital design. The experience is largely mixed. And adding new revenue streams is one of the most popular answers here. The second one is transforming from old to new ones. And then distinctiveness. So you are up for it. I stopped sharing the results so that we can go and explore how digital design can lead to more distinctiveness. So the old story of distinctiveness by design we already got. Yes, we understand this, but now we are in a different reality, and suddenly we see, well, there may be some standard forms that get settled in a market, that more and more competitors seem to adopt, and then standing out is a challenge. So what phones are we seeing here? Give me answers in the chat. So the top left one is easy. The make is on the back of the phone. You can read it. But what are the other ones? Can you recognize one? Give me an answer. So you see that this may not be so you may not be so difficult. It may not be so easy for Apple. Yes, iPhone. Huawei, okay, very, very good. Yes, all right. This is not an exam, by the way. This is not an exam. Let me disclose the results right away. Thank you. This is the accurate labeling, but you see the problem. We have products that are doing their job. But because they're all so similar, the only thing that fundamentally differentiates them is the digital design, is the interface, is the usability, if all other things are equal. If all the other hardware bits don't match up to high expectations, then of course it's a no-go. So the hurdle of reasonable equality when it comes to hardware quality has to be overcome for this to happen. But it is happening, as you are familiar with. So what then does digital design mean? It means a lot of things. For the developers of apps, digital design means that Apple is giving them a manual of how to develop new apps for the App Store. So the design parameters are to a certain extent given so that this is acceptable to Apple. And this is very, very helpful because it, in principle, allows enthusiastic small firms, startups, to put out an app and have a big success with that. So that is towards the B2B side, if you like. And then digital design, as an example taken from Amazon, it is a bit old, but I still love it because it illustrates what I need to illustrate. The shopping cart. The digital purchase experience has been fundamentally revolutionized by Amazon's introduction of the shopping cart. We all know a shopping cart. We used to use it when we went for shopping without COVID. We all knew the script, how it is to go into the supermarket and get the stuff into the shopping cart. And Amazon replicated this kind of script online and made it really easy, so easy that even our dogs order more than we'd like them to order. So it's a stunning feat of digital design. The ease of use is benefiting from what was already a habit and a routine in the real world. I think this is still very, very good. Airbnb. Airbnb has put out its design language that allows itself to optimize internally, but also to facilitate all its partners around the world to quickly launch their accommodation opportunities to the rest of the world. So a simplified design language that is extremely standardized across all geographic areas and languages allows ease of use in the different countries that you might find yourself. And it is a stunning example of how digital design can help partners, but also users. There are some design principles that Airbnb has coined, so it needs to be unified, universal, iconic, and conversational, so people get pulled into a conversation. And this is the point that I want to emphasize going forward. And when we interact with this platform, whether it is the App Store or whether it is Airbnb, as said earlier, users share a lot of data with the producers. And that is becoming more and more key. Excuse me. You're far enough to be safe, but it is not what you thought it is. Good. So users share a lot of data with producers. And that's great because now we can design products even better because we know what the user's needs are. And mobile apps allow us to access a lot of user data that we didn't have access to when we were sitting behind the screen trying to figure out what was going on in the heads of these people. This is behavioral data. So where are people at a given point in time? What are they doing? How often are they interacting with what kind of ads and so on. So I go quickly through this because you know this data. The smart home device market is exploding as well. So it's not only that we have the mobile in our pocket. When we enter our home is the sensor of what we're doing. And so this means that the stream of data from users to producers is massive. And that has consequences. And it is really massive. The web traffic from all these devices is up. This is January 2020, the latest data that I could find. Now we have February 21. What did we do last year? Did we do anything else besides being on the web? So the time spent per day is quite considerable. So in the Philippines, on the left-hand side, more than 9 hours are spent online. So that's a far cry from the Netherlands and Japan at the right end. But you see the variation, and the average is 6 hours. 6 hours per day without COVID, January 2020. So that means there is a digital dialogue going on. Dialogue, is that a euphemism? Maybe. You may not be aware how much you are telling the producers. So this is an important aspect. And it leads fantastic firms like Netflix and Stitch Fix to have a dialogue with their consumers and offer them just what they want. And the Stitch Fix example, how they made it through COVID is quite exceptional. They are among the very few retailers, fashion retailers, who understand that about 50% of people don't like to shop in a retail outlet. They love to be online and be helped with the retail experience online. And Stitch Fix has been using AI and data analytics to help them with just that by making great recommendations. And the same could be said for Netflix, but I don't want to go into too much detail there because I want to have your questions and I want to discuss with you the next few thoughts. So then there is TikTok. And for me, TikTok is all about getting people and keeping them. And it breaks design rules, but it keeps many others. How does it break design rules? For example, this is today's Google surface if you are in Switzerland, but I think around the world, because it's Chinese New Year, Xinyan Kuai Le. So Happy New Year to all of you. And this is the clean interface that we have become used to over the last almost 2 decades. So this has become a standard of how you design an easy to use website for many. And TikTok clearly breaks that rule because it's much more dynamic, it's much more cluttered, but it's also much more faster and energizing. So they have many ways to get people into their community and keep them there. Amongst them, the For You algorithm, which is very effective at feeding new clips that you just love. And you are surprised because you are rewarded by not knowing what will excite you next. So the uncertainty there is something very, very enticing, and that keeps you on your toes and on TikTok. So what are the consequences? We are moving towards a customization that is progressing rapidly, and it's very user-centered. It's very user-centered because the digital dialogue is expanding, and it is including third parties. And that's where I think we need to spend a little bit of time on habits and habit formation and how to hack these habits. So when we are more than 6 hours in 2020 online, then we seem to have developed a taste for our activities online. And that is not by chance. This is by design. So user experience and user experience design is just where this happens. And hacking habits for companies can be really good, because if you make people enjoy the uncertainty that they don't know what will make them enthusiastic in the next moment, you keep them on your site. So the utility that you provide them and the frequency with which you bring them into your fold is important. And from research out of Stanford, we know that behavior is driven by motivation, the ability to do something, and a certain trigger. So many of the online applications are trigger happy. So you can have triggers like an advertisement, or you can have a friend recommending you to look at something, but you can also have internalized needs that make you want to do something again and again and again. So the next point there on the list is the ability. So if you feel the need to do something again, but you have to walk far, or you have to pay a lot, or you have to spend some mental or physical effort on doing this task, especially if it is a new task and you don't really know what to do, then that's difficult to do. So people don't do it. And the more successful apps that are designed to hack your habits and are very distinctive by doing so are able to reduce any barriers to your ability and action. And then there's this variable component of offering a carrot or a stick, or some people talk about the joy of the chase, just hunting for more, or belonging to a community, or enhancing the self-concept, are things that reward people or are perceived, if withdrawn, as a punishment. And the final thing I think is extremely powerful, the lock-in. The more you have engaged with a platform and the more friends you have made on a social platform, or the more music you have bought in one system, or the more movies you have watched in one system, the better the system becomes at serving your needs, and the harder it is to leave. So that's another way of hacking habits, and it just obstructs people from moving if they ever might have that wish. But very often these apps are so good, so well designed, so distinctive that we don't want to move away. That's where I want to come to the final point. You may have forgotten that there are 3 P's. So the first one was a lot of attention to product. The second one was a lot of attention to the process of doing something with the users, co-designing, co-creating with the users. And the third point that I think is very, very fundamental for how we are moving on is perspective. This is a quick summary of part of design history. On the left bottom, you see factories emerging, industrial revolution. And that was costing some jobs, but others figured out that they could, and now we're on the top, together with this style and others, that they could use modern manufacturing technology and produce great products so cheap that it will be good for everyone. That was the idea of Bauhaus and many related streams in this period. And you see a couple of these products, but you also see on the right hand, and you also see on the right hand here, again, Raymond Loewy, and the quote is his. So the quote is his: "One should design for the advantage of the largest mass of people." And which is Bauhaus? Is this Bauhaus or is this Bauhaus? Well, another quick quiz. The top one is IKEA, actually. And you all know, remember the iPod. That is kind of part of that language, although the pricing may not have been immediately accessible for all. So that is an idea, that is a perspective that design took back then. And what I would like to trigger your thoughts on is what are the perspectives that we need to take? And clearly IKEA has been very, very successful. And they have recently started to implement their sustainability plan. And by 2035, they will have made strides, and they already have installed 1 million square meters of solar panels. But there are others who are just up and coming, like Willis, that produce cleaners from food waste. Again, perspective. In the past, it was about how can we make great products in a moment of scarcity for people at price points so that they can afford them. Now we have a sustainability crisis, and we need to think how design can help us to become distinctive by solving this big problem that is to be taken into perspective. And yeah, Willis does it by simply using a couple of ingredients that they can generate from food waste, and then they add a little of fragrance to it, and even that is organic. And so I think this is an illustration of how two very, very different companies try to approach design and distinctiveness from a broader perspective than just beating the other person or the other competitor. This is one of the final slides. There are few examples of companies that really are brave when they design. They are transparent, and they are enabling to pull triggers back, to avoid triggers. They create awareness and focus, and they create time. They give users time back. And I've taken as an example Apple's screen time awareness feature that shows you how much time you have been spending, and gives you a little bit more control of what you're doing. So some of you may say, well, this is not enough. I think this is a brave step to embrace a much larger perspective that I think is necessary. Summary slide, and then we go for Q&A. We started with making, then making for people, and then making with people better products, better services through the dialogue. And if you're at B2B, your customer actually is a source of most of the incremental and often breakthrough moves that you can make. Now, digital design adds to this very much, because it allows us, through massive analysis of data, to build better models of our users. So ASML, for example, knows much more about how its machines are used, because the machines provide ASML the data, and with this data, ASML is a chip manufacturer in the Netherlands, sorry. Through this data, ASML can then optimize its machines for its clients even further. So from better models of users, we can then move to even better designs for the users and with the users. So we have come full circle, if you want. But there are options where keeping the user in the loop is enough for developing new business models and new sources of revenue. And I think that it is happening, and it is justifiable, and it is clearly a profitable source of revenue. But I think that overall, it is good to give back, and give back to those who have provided the impetus for all these efforts and the engagement. And therefore, if we could close the loop so that we have actually a full circle, then I think we're up for a future that meets the challenges of the perspectives that we have to face. So with this, I'd love to take a couple of questions, and I have already 9. Nobody can, yes, Thomas, nobody can go into the shop. This is why digital design, where we are all watching at the screen, has become so critical. If you are irritated by a site, you will never go there again, because you are already at home and you don't want an irritating site. So if you have irritation on your website, that can cost you customers, revenue, profitability, survival these days. So this is why it is now so crucial to, if you are not there, to ramp up and quickly go digital. Sobi, thank you. Rahul, this is wonderful. Sobi, yes, stand out, blend in. I love this. I really like this. Tesla Cybertruck. Look, Tesla is a prime example of how you stand out at the beginning. When you don't have a lot of products to sell, you stand out, you create the desire, and then you sell more products that are much less exciting. They're great, but they are much less exciting than the first one. And you could say that Tesla has followed the script of many sports car makers. Digital design. I should define digital design. Well, for me, digital design is what with digital technology delivers functionality, emotions, and symbolic meaning. What is the third piece? Oh, Casper, you have been attentive. This is very, very good. I love this. Yes, the third P was perspective. I really think we need perspective in order to address the big challenges that we are all facing, whether it is COVID or climate change or any other company survival. We need to address the big perspectives to succeed with distinctiveness. And now I've done the unpermissible thing. I have gone 1 minute over time. We are in Switzerland. My friends, I'm very, very sorry. This is about all of it. I'll try to answer the questions if I can trace you back. If you have questions, please send them to me. Stay in touch. Thank you, everyone, for your great engagement. And yes, 恭喜发财. Yes, thank you. This is wonderful. Enjoy this New Year's Day. And you are most welcome to attend any other of my and my colleagues' webinars at IMD. Thank you. Have a good day.